Welcome to the Battle Buddy Podcast with Keith McKeever.
Welcome back to another episode of the Battle Buddy Podcast. I am joined by Daniel Faust here, and he is he's with Legrity Media. I think you got some other organizations you're with as well. But Daniel, welcome to the podcast. We're going to talk about transition today. So before we get into that, introduce yourself. Like, where did you grow up? What kind of a kid was Daniel, and how'd you end up in the military?
Daniel Faust, originally from Rhode Island, from 0 to 8, fun-go-lucky, jokey, sarcastic kid at 8. Went through some trials between 8 to 15, with including my brother's death, and then became not just sarcastic, but very facetious, which is tearing of flesh, and very heartbroken during that time. So from 15 to 18 was just filling the void. Whatever God-shaped vacuum I had at that time, I was just filling that up. So that was until about 18, and then I got recruited into the military because of a girl that I had a crush on since 9th grade. She told me how much she didn't like me, and she had a boyfriend after we got to the recruiter's office. And that's how I started my military career in 2000.
That might be the most interesting story. I did not expect that. You got me there.
Mm-hmm. I tried to get the short version because I want to make sure our listeners are not like TikTokers. I want to lose them. So,
yeah, wow.
So going from there, dropping that bomb, I went over and the recruiter gave free food and fun and conversation. So even though the video of basic training scared the bejesus out of me, I still went in the service. So that was October of 2000, and then I've been in for 21 years, and I've been many different jobs and many different places. I was 12 years active. I've been 9 years as a reservist. My goal is to retire in the next couple years, so #ready to retire. That's been on my mind for the past, 6 months. So I'm like, #ready to retire.
Just 6 months? I mean, don't most people have that for like the last 6 years?
No, for me, it was one of those things. You just come to the realization when you start going to certain courses and you start reading certain things, and you're like, I've grown since then, and there's some things that I'm like, I'm not congruent with anymore. And I think it's just being wise and saying like, hey, as soon as I'm done, I'm done. I'm like, hey, if you're good for the service, stay in the service. Once you find out that the service is not a fit for you, or you're not in the same values, instead of being confrontational, you just go over and say, hey, I need to go find a place of values that I fit in. And that's why we started Legrity Media 5 months ago, because it really goes with my values of integrity, legacy, and global community. Now, the rest of the services do have some of those values, but for me specifically, I want to value more the military, the veteran, and the first responder, the soldier, the airman, the guardian, as we call it nowadays, Coastie, to go over and to serve them. Yeah, I know. The Guardians got new logos now. They got their rank. They're red to go. So I will call them Guardians now. I never thought I'd have Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that's not something that really rolls off the tongue very easy. It's still, still hard to imagine.
Yep, but that's what I'm here for, and that's what I want to serve. I want to serve them in a veteran capacity and also as a director of IT in Legrity Media. So that's me in a nutshell. I've gotten some of my humor back working through my brokenness and transition and everything else, which we call transformation at War Hero to Superhero. That's my show that's on Legrity Media. So that's the other agency, Keith, you were talking about. So there's only two main things I go over and do, and it breaks up into three simple spots. Like, Learn and Live is the business that goes over and powers War Hero to Superhero. And then Legrity Media powers both those resources through their digital TV connections and also distribution.
Yeah, if listeners haven't checked it out, you go check out legritymedia.com. I know from previous conversation, you can get it on, I think, Amazon, Fire Stick, Roku, a bunch of different devices. You can download the app. You can watch it on there. Got different shows on there. It's been a while. I don't know if you've had anything new since I looked, but a variety of shows. It's, kind of definitely a variety show with different topics. I think some of them are more talk shows. Some of them are more informative and educational. So is there on that topic of Legrity Media, is there a certain show that's your favorite on there?
My show of favorite right now is War Umbrella through Nurica Castaneda. She is an Army veteran of 10 years that takes veteran resources and lifts them up and lifts up the veterans. And she actually travels. So you're not stuck in this head bobble video like we're doing today. Like head bobble videos are good, but you need the variety between the head bobble and then the face bobble and then the outside bobble and whatever. So
yeah, I feel like I head bobble all the time on the show. Listeners can't see, but those on video will see it. But yeah, you're right on Nirka, man. She travels all over the place. I've known her for a while. The amount of traveling she's done on the show is amazing. And I feel, even with the Battle Buddy podcast and the resources I try and put on my website and the resources I try and bring and the education I try and bring, my mind is blown at where she finds the resources she has. I'll be honest, she is like another resource library for me. If I can't find something, I know New York is probably connected with somebody who knows it, and it's amazing. And I think I've watched, 3 episodes of her. I know the first 2 were with Stephen Kuhn and Lane Balone and kind of talking about the Humble Alpha stuff. But you got to go check it out, legaritymedia.com, or get on Roku, Amazon Fire, all those different plug-and-play devices, I guess. But transition, you were active duty for 12 years. You're in reserves now. What was that transition like for you? How did that process go?
Well, initially it was fantastic. You get on that high and you're like, because at first I got out because of a career field, and the career field wouldn't let me go. So then they gave me a referral EPR. So then I had to go. And then because the career field says unless you're mentally retarded or have a speech impediment, you're stuck in the career field. That's the only 2 eliminating factors. Well, I wasn't going to stutter again because I went through 7 years of speech therapy. And I'm not going to reduce down my IQ to 80 just to get out of a career field. So they saw I was a disservice to the career field, and rightfully so. I mean, I couldn't balance it all. Like, you have 300 diagnoses, you're helping providers, being their arm for everything, and then you're also doing all their administrative work and everything else. So you got to balance between hard skills and soft skills on a constant basis. I'm a soft skill guy, and I can go in that lane. And I'm a hard skill guy, and I can go in that lane. I can't shift and pivot back and forth in there. Like, after this call, I can go hard skill, but it takes a lot of focus on me in that particular regard. But doing them both was difficult. So I give no harm or foul what active duty did. It makes sense on what they were restricted on. They couldn't get me to go back because of their restrictions. They're like, we can't waive this stuff. So I had to, quote unquote, transition back to the civilian world, which we never transition back. And that's the first fallacy. You never transition, you transform. A caterpillar doesn't go to a butterfly and says, hey, I need to go back to being a caterpillar again. No, they've already transformed. They might have a couple months on their life, but they have a beautiful life during those couple months. And for us, it's like, as we, transform out, we might have a long transformational life, or we might have a short transformational life, but we transform. So we need to enjoy that time while we're out, but we also need to figure out how to best live this new metamorphosis body that we have, which we are not aware of the first 3 to 6 years. Chris Hoffman, a vetpreneur that is fantastic in helping transition in vets, really in the sense of entrepreneurship, really high kudos to him. And he's actually been doing some great studies with, I think, the San Diego universities out there and whatnot, goes over and helps those people. But that's the first thing you need to realize. You're not transitioning, you're transforming. Now, I know not every vet organization calls it that, but at least for War Hero to Superhero and my overall business, it's transformation. And I'm hoping to join one day, because when you look at this transformation, it's a lot more in depth than just transition. Transition just says you go back. That's like saying you got married and then you got divorced. You don't go back, be single, and all that time in your life you just don't reflect on. Even if it was a quote unquote good divorce, you still had lessons that you went over and learned. So
you're a different person. I mean, the moment you step off the bus into basic training, boot camp, whatever your branch called it, like, you're a different person. You've been trained differently, experiences, life, all these things are just different. We're all different. I think if anybody says they're not different the moment they get out is a liar. But that was really an epiphany moment for me. I was just sitting here thinking, as you're saying that, it's like, wow, transformation. Yes, because we don't go back, but you do instantly. The time you get out, you transform. You're back in the civilian world. You are now a veteran. You have the title of veteran. Even if you're going to the reserves or the National Guard, whatever, you're leaving one type of service for another, because they're different. Obviously, weekends and training periods, and the structure is different. But you've got the immediate impact, that immediate change, but then you have the lifelong change. You have to learn how to be in the civilian world. It doesn't happen overnight. You're instantly in it. That's the instant change, but there's that long-term learning that you're always going to do, learning and adapting. So that's a interesting way of putting it. I like how you put that there.
Yeah, there's a term, and I'm not going to go too far in depth, but I think of Christian concepts that would explain a little better. If you understand salvation, it's like, hey, you came to faith. We'll just keep it at that. And then there's sanctification. You're going over and you're now coming into the process of glorification. So what it means is like the butterfly. The butterfly is become glorification, but it doesn't really understand how to live a butterfly. So it has to learn that. It's the same thing as us veterans. We already are transformed. Now we need to learn to live that out. And we might not realize all the nuances of things. Like I remember when I went into active duty, it was the same thing. You wore the uniform for 6 months. You were a soldier. You were an airman. You were a Marine. You already were transformed. And now you're in this sanctification process. It took me 6 months to realize I'm in the military. I'm wearing a uniform. It is the mental process, the emotional process, the social process, the spiritual process. And it's the same thing when you get out of the service. You've already set those things and you're living those out, but the thing is that you don't realize it right away. You're still having mental transitional realities and emotional and social and spiritual. So we're already there. We already were veteran when we got out, but the thing is that now we're just learning how to live it out. That's it.
Yeah, I know when I got off active duty, I'm going to say it was somewhere between 2 to 3 years before I really maybe understood what it was to be a veteran. I understood who I was. I mean, it was about the time I turned 30. And that's kind of when just like life clicked and I realized who I was. I had that moment of clarity of like, this is who I am. This is what I've experienced. Here's what my goals and aspirations are. Like, this is a part of who I am, but it doesn't completely define who I am. And I got all this ahead of me. It was like that moment of clarity. And I think for everybody, it's different. Some people might get it in 6 months. Some people might not get it in 50 years. Mm-hmm. Like they might just be stuck for whatever reason. But did you ever have anything like that happen to you where you just like, after leaving active duty, you just woke up one day and just had this clarity?
It was more of clarity in my marriage in 2013 because I was just an emotional whore and really stupid, and I was gaslighting. I didn't realize I was doing this, but it was in June of 2013 when I took it too far, and then my wife spiritually kicked me in the nuts, and that's when the reality of that transformation and that reality of realizing, first, I'm a veteran and I'm also not in the military anymore. And I was treating my wife like a soldier. So I had to get a reality check in there and make that transformation too. So it was each part of life that, I was there and I was like, all right, what was it, June of 13, I got out. July of 2012 was about a year, but I was still living like that soldier husband, trying to soldier on, but I really needed to go over and to transform. And I was doing some really stupid things in that regard. So for me, that was that reality, the reality of me really understanding the full retrospect emotionally, socially, and spiritually, and also transformally as a veteran. And where I was at was in 2017. I broke my back in 17. It was November 2nd of 17. I was on drill. I'm a numbers guy, so if you're meeting me in person,
I'll pick it up on that. Yeah, the numbers, dates, and everything just rolling right off the tongue there.
Oh yeah. The funny part is history class was hell, but my history is really easy.
Yeah, I don't remember. I can't remember nothing. I'll just be like, I think it was like spring. That's as close as I'm going to get.
Yep. Now for me, history is really big to me because it goes over and transforms when you have an understanding of it. But yeah, November 2nd of 17, I think it was a Thursday that day. Yeah, because drill was Saturday. And we were almost homeless again because of just jobs and everything else. And my wife's like, how are we going to go over and make it? I said, the Lord is my witness. I'm going to do two things: continue to go over and love on you, and to continue to go fight for this family. Well, got to go fight for my family by my back breaking in the parking lot. Got down to about an 8 in pain, almost collapsed onto the concrete. Luckily, I had strong enough knees, but the back wasn't there. I basically low crawled over to the car, which is about another 1,000 feet. It was more like a crouching low crawl. And then the pain subsided. And I'm like, Lord, give me strength. I still need to go make money. And I was on annual tour at the time. Well, got to the next place and boom, the back went again. And I couldn't do nothing. I had to basically now army crawl into the building. And the funny part is it's 2017. And yeah, I had a different iPhone. But I thought to myself, halfway crawling, I'm like, why am I crawling? I have a phone. That's not part of transformation sometimes. You don't realize the transformation you make in the simplest little things. I'm like, why am I army crawling into my medical building when I can call and ask for help? So
somebody come out and grab me, for crying out loud. That's a good point.
I said,
you're probably not alone in that. A lot of people would probably do the same thing.
Yeah. So that's another thing about transformation. We need to realize what we are living in and actually think about it in a proactive way. And so I go over and I call my chief. I said, hey, chief, I'm outside the door and I'm crawling right now and I can't much move. I said, could you go over and help me? So she's like, what? And I said, I think I broke my back. I don't know. I'm like, they tried to pull me up and do a fireman carry. Oh, hell no. I said, take my bag. I'm army crawling the rest of the way in. So I army crawled right in. And the next hour and a half, I had like 30 people keep telling me, like, what happened? What happened? So how do you become a good storyteller? Tell 30 people 30 separate times. That's how you become a good storyteller. Because it changes as you go. Like, I'm going to make this more fun as I go. And then in 2 days in the hospital, and it was the thing that broke the straw, not just my back, but broke the straw on the camel's back about the realization of who I was really transforming. What got war hero to superhero started was a guy. I won't name names, but it was a guy from my church, because this church has been in a lot of the news lately, so I won't name names. But long story short, he's like, yeah, you need to start over again. You need to go back to the civilian world, this transition stuff. Go back to a $10 to $15 job and hopefully work yourself way back up and all these other things. And I'm like, and I was wrestling at the time of who I was going to serve in my business. Am I going to serve marriages just in general, or am I going to serve my military veterans and first responders? And that was an eye awakener. I'm like, I don't care if I'm a dollaire or a billionaire. The Lord hopefully make it billionaire so I can serve more people. That's the only reason why I'd be rich. But no matter if I'm a dollar or a billionaire, I need to serve the people I go over and love, which is the military veterans, first responders. I almost got up and walked out of the frustration of him trying to tell me like how much wrong I was and everything else. And I'm like, really? But yeah, I had to get up and walk. Like 12 hours later, they're like, you got to get out of bed and walk. And I'm like, what? But I had to go continue to transform. So it took 3 months, and that was more of the emotional, social, and spiritual transformation for me. The mental one was when my wife kicked me in the nuts. It's when God went over and kicked me in the back, and he did it with good reason to get me to transform and to realize what my calling was and what my life was supposed to be. So I'm thankful for both. I mean, yeah, it hurts initially. Luckily, the one with my wife was spiritual, not physical, but the other one was. I can imagine getting it's like the Olympics. Every 4 years, I'm getting kicked somewhere.
I'm not much of a religious person, but I do very firmly believe that some force of some sort in the universe just sends you messages. And sometimes you just got to pay attention or take a step back and be like, all right, well, what happened sucked, but what are the opportunities here? Like what is being told to me? What's my direction? You know, you get a lot of forks in the road, and you got to figure out which way to go. And luckily, you know, unfortunately for you, it happened twice, but it put you on the right path. You know, put you on the path, and like you got to figure some things out. I know I've had things in my life that have pushed me in different directions, and I look back and I'm like, wow, without that one key incident happening, I wouldn't be where I am today. You know, I wouldn't be thinking of different things. And you know, that's how my podcast started, was seeing different people's struggles on Facebook in different areas of marriage, faith, finances, PTSD, medical claims, whatever, all the things that us veterans deal with. And I got sick and tired of seeing it. Like, it was kind of in a way a gut punch to me. I just felt sick to my stomach knowing that people are struggling, and some of the advice they get was just terrible. Or it's not really, when it's a text thing in Facebook, it's not an actionable step. It's not inspirational. Sometimes the information's wrong. And then I was like, well, I like podcasts. Why not create a podcast and bring people on and inspire people? Give them the actionable steps or inspiration or the education that they need to better their lives, better their situation. You know, and that's a perfect example of what you just said, of like, sometimes shit happens to you, and you just got to realize what happened, and then like search really, really deep inside and say, what am I going to do about it now? And always keep the eye on the prize of doing good for other people.
And that's fantastic. And that's what made me, make that transformation too, is that, you got to take these moments in life, no matter if you have faith or not. And it's a fork in the road. Sometimes you like what direction that you go. And the funny part is that, we get those in life and we want to do things a certain way, but for my personal belief, it's his story, not mine. And I get to be only in chapter 1 of the rest of the story. And I get to be an actor. I don't have to worry about directing and producing and gaffing and lights and all this other stuff. I get to be an actor. I might get only one line for 15 seconds. But the thing is that if those 15 seconds transforms our lives to give people more of their story, which goes overall to his story, then that's worthwhile. And that's the reason why I do the things that I do and make the decisions that I do and try to empower the people I go over and do and the community I do, because I feel that, and I know that my story part, my one role is to transform the military veterans and first responders. So again, it doesn't matter how much I get, it's how much I can go over and give.
Yeah, awesome. So I have to try and reword some of my questions here, because I'm going to take your transformation instead of transition. I was going to ask you, what are you seeing out there, from your perspective, what people are struggling with, the issues that they're having with their transformation?
I would say the biggest thing now, like when it was in 2012, it was lack of information and everything else. Now it's totally information overload in so many different directions to go over and go. So trying to be that beacon of light. And that's the reason why we started Legrity Media, because we're going to be talking about this tonight on Clubhouse at 6. Well, this episode will be airing months later, but you can catch us in some modality on legritymedia.com. But what we're going to be talking about tonight is about shadow banning and subs, which are like from YouTube, and you get lost. So there's just so much stuff out there. So we want to be a beacon of light, and we want to be a blue ocean to get the right content out there and to get the best content out there. So I would see that's one of the biggest things, is that now we have so much, it's so hard, because sometimes we might think there's more forks in the road for our direction when we get to those trials or those epiphany moments, and we're like, then you get paralyzed because it's analysis paralysis. It's like, so I would say that's probably one of the biggest things in the transformation nowadays, is that now we've finally stepped up and you're like, which direction do I go? How much should I go? Should I take that risk? Should I go to Daniel's program or Keith's program or Chris Hoffman's program or whatever's program, and not having that light? And that's what we want to do with War Hero to Superhero, as we go over and consult through the show, which is on Legrity Media, to give you those best resources that we go over and see. But the overall goal is what's best for you, because again, mine's pretty clear, but sometimes you might not get that clear answer. In 2013, it was a clear answer. You get spiritually kicked in the woohoo, it's pretty clear. You go over and you lose your back, and someone's challenged you exactly what you're wrestling with in your head, it's pretty clear. But sometimes those answers are not pretty clear. So we hope to be that 3 feet of light to go over and help you in that regard. We can't be the 1,000-yard stare, but as long as you got 3 feet of light and you can keep walking forward, that's the most important thing about transformation too, is you just can't do it all at once. Like, I have projections where I want to be, and I could say them right now until I'm like 80 years old. I do. But if I go over and I hold that mag light out all the way that far out, I might miss people on the left and the right that I could have served. So I need to have that vision, but I also need to have that flashlight, the local one, so I can look on my left and right and see who I can help in those regards and what directions are best. So that's what us is hope. I think that's the main thing in transformation, is that there's just so much blasting light everywhere, but we want to be one central focal light. That's what Legrity Media, like our goal, I know this is going to air December or January, but our long-term goal is 120,000 shows in like the next 5 or 10 years. But we want to make sure that we're focused laser light in there. 120,000 sounds a lot, but there's 37 million on YouTube. There's 800 million on TikTok. We want to be a focused light. That's only 300 stations. So it's like your average cable company that we really want to be focused to go over and to get your message, and for you to never be lost, and that you can continually just go find that light 3 feet at a time.
Yeah, I'm sure you're some of those other platforms that are out there. I'll keep from refraining their name, but I'm sure it's much easier to get a show and negotiate with you guys and get it on there logistically, all that stuff, than it is some of the bigger name programs out there. I'm sure it's quite the hurdle on some of those.
Yeah, and like I said, we want to be the best fit for you. So that's another thing with Legrity Media. We want to be integrity, legacy, and global community. If those values are you and your show goes over and fits, great. We're going to be exclusive and inclusive. we're not just going to go over, and just because you have 1 million subs and you have 500,000 views doesn't mean it's the content great for our audience. That's the difference of where we're at. We're not just going to go accept anybody. It's like, you could be my BFF, Keith, but if your show sucks, I'm not saying it does, but if it did, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to say it doesn't fit, or say, hey, if you like to go over and speak your mind in very 4 and 5 letter words in your TVMA, no matter what, it's like, you might be a fit for me. You might be a fit for Vet TV, So
that's a good point. Yours is definitely more value driven. I've noticed that on the shows I've watched. Very, very much more value driven. Dare I say, maybe cleaner in some ways, but just more positive. Positive, inspirational, morally right in some ways. Hope that makes sense. Yeah.
So from a basic perspective, it's TV 14 content. It has a positive message. It has a global community reach. That's the type of stuff that we're going over and looking for. It can be in all types of genre and whatnot. And we do go over and love everybody in that particular regard. So it's not just because I'm a Christian that I'm going to say non-Christians can't come on the network. It's all faiths, all denominations, all types of viewpoints, but it's got to be in a positive light. So if it's more of networks that we watch that we make fun of that are in the news area, love them to go over and to watch and banter, but we want to have it to be more of a positive spin, not in the sense of a negative or critical side of that side. Constructive criticism, yes, but not criticism. So
there's enough criticism and negativity in the world, so it is very refreshing for positive news stories, positive stuff. So throughout the transformation process, try not to say transition.
Transition.
But mindset is huge in achieving that goal, right? And you had certain things that were leading you, guiding you, mindset wise. But any advice for somebody going through transformation here soon, like get their mind right and focused in the right direction for that process?
I would say as much as possible, as soon as they know the answer, they need to start working through the transformation process. Like, for example, if you're getting a year out, you need to start working on your financial transformation. You need to start working on your mindset transformation. You need to start working on your resume transformation, learning to have those words depending on where you're going. A TAPS class is authorized twice typically when you're getting out of service, which is your transitional assistance program. Forgot the seminar. Yeah, transitional assistance program seminar. So that's like a 1 week that you can go up to twice within the year prior of you getting out of the service. And now they have 3 tracks, which is fantastic because they didn't have that when I went out. It was basically learn your federal resume and that's it, and learn your job.
And get on LinkedIn.
Get on LinkedIn for the year, and stuff like that, which LinkedIn does give a year, which is great. So definitely if you're getting out, you want to leverage that. It takes an average before the pandemic, 6 to 9 months to go over and to averagely get a job. So, it's faster a little bit as I've been seeing the trends because not as many people wanting to go back to the normal traditional face-to-face work. So it might be faster, but there's a 40% movement from work from home movement. There's a lot of remote jobs. So still, I would a year start working through that. And you really want to figure out where you want to go, but then the steps where you want to be. So if I had to rewrite my script in a sense, which when I got out, I just started my business. I had very little cash flow, and I'm trying to just grind it out and make it as quick as possible. I would have put as much savings as possible, would have worked a part-time job, and just side hustled my business until it became full-time instead of almost going homeless 3 times within a 7 to 9 year period, 7-year period. So, and also with this transformation in that regard is that you start figuring out the things that maybe you neglected. Maybe you were neglecting your marriage. Maybe you were neglecting your kids. Maybe you were neglecting your vision, your goals, your dreams, your destiny, or other things, and start going over and seeing what you can get aligned in order. But at War Hero to Superhero, we recommend aligning from the bedroom to the boardroom, because when your spouse is on board, your kids will be more likely on board. And then when your spouse and your kids are on board, then they're supporting you in your boardroom dreams, and it also empowers them. And then they know how to live that out. So they're not like, hey, dad or mom is doing real well at work, but they're struggling at home. And then they carry that legacy into the next generation. So that's what we recommend in that, is that, the cool thing is that you're not dead yet. And if you're not divorced yet, you're not dead in that realm. So there's hope until everything's destroyed. I even seen marriages reconcile like after divorce and they come back. There's a really cool comedian, Air Force comedian, Dennis Galaxio. Go watch him on Dry Bar. He's been traveling across the USO and everything else. And he's also traveling with Preacher Lawson, real famous comedian that's been on America's Got Talent. So they're traveling together. That guy he's been in 3 marriages, but 2 of them has been to his first wife. So his first wife and his third wife, he actually reconciled and worked it out. And it was a 20-year gap. So there's always hope until you're dead. So in that particular regard, and it's an amazing transformational story that he talks about while he's on comedy and tour and everything else. So
sure, that provides a lot of comedy situations in part of that story too.
Oh yeah, he goes,
just getting divorced and then getting remarried to that person later in life. But you do change. I mean, we all change throughout time, so it's not that much of a stretch in the imagination that somebody couldn't, when you get your mindset right and you mature and you bring those values more together. Things like that can be possible. But yet, you have a good point. Like, it's a clean slate. Transition can be. You're leaving one job, one skill, one life for another, whatever that looks like. But it's kind of a clean slate. It's your opportunity to kind of hit the reset button in a lot of ways and say, that's my old life. Here's my new life. Here's how I'm going to live it with purpose now.
Yep, it definitely is. And that's the fantastic thing, is that you can go over and do that. So that's what I love about transformation. Until you're dead, it's not over.
That's a good point. You mentioned TAPS, and I know when I got out 10 years ago, it was basically just, you might have went once, and it was basically LinkedIn, get your resume in shape, all that stuff. It was something. I think they could do more, but I'm kind of curious. Do you have any thoughts? Now that they have 3, that kind of blows my mind. There are a couple different options or tracks on it, but anything that you think that you've seen or heard that you think they should improve on?
They've been doing pretty well from that. So when you're a reservist and you go on orders for a long time, you get to go through it again. So I got to go through it again when I was on orders for roughly about 6 months, and it was pretty well. It was at Luke Air Force Base at the time, and they had the entrepreneur track, they had the educational track, and they had the corporate track. So then you started shredding out and whatnot. They also check your finances to make sure that you're prepared to get out of the service and everything else. And then you continually can go over and meet with them. And until they see that you're meeting these check blocks in that particular regard. Now, people still get lost, because the problem of the matter of it is that you're stuck in the active duty track. And one of the things that Cornelius, I'm blanking on his last name, Maxwell. I think it's Cornelius Maxwell. He's out in Virginia trying to go create a warrior battalion, at least in the Army, that goes over. It's called a warrior transition battalion. And basically 6 months prior that you're out, but you're still with them, making that transition, to go look for jobs and everything else. And you're not doing the work of the MOS or the AFSC or the rate or whatever you want to call it. I think Space Force calls it AFSC still, which is because it's an Air Force specialty code. That's funny. But anyway.
They just haven't changed that to SF yet.
SFSC. Oh, man. If I have to work for them, that's going to be hard. But anyway, so you go over and they give you 6 months. So he's working on that. So there's always improvement. But from 2012 to 2021 to what I'm aware of, it's gotten a lot better. But it's the mindset. We're locked in. So it's like, you got to start making that transformation. The transition, just going over, it's like, all right, I'm going to start releasing my job to people. I'm going to take my leave and everything else, and then I'm going to exhaust it out. But if you're not making that transformation to say, hey, I'm becoming a veteran, what can I do as a veteran? What is my next step? What is my 5-year, my 10-year, my 20-year plan? What do I want? What do I want my marriage to look like? What do I want my family to look like? What do I want my legacy to look like? What do I have financial portfolio to go and look like? If my body went out today, and what would I want the rest of my life to go look out like that? But those types of things, you need to have people that are mentoring people that are regular basis to go over and get that. And I'm not talking about the mentorship you get for like 30 days when you get on base. I'm talking about long-term mentorship that goes over and sees how you're doing, gets you to your goals, dreams, and destiny, willing to go say like, hey, dude, you're sucking at this, or, and just call it out.
Yeah, that accountability source is going to, emotionally kick you in the nuts, right? Or however you put it, that your wife did to you spiritually, I guess. But yeah, you need that person that's going to be no filter, that's going to just tell you like it is. Like, no, you're messing up. This is not right. You got to do this. Here's what I recommend. Here's what I've seen, whatever. But I've often said, transition, transformation, whatever. I think it needs to start before you even sign up at 18, 19, 20 years old. You need to realize that your time in is limited, right? You've been in 20 years. I did 5 years, 7 months, 20 days, something like that. Like, not that anybody was ever counting. Now, I looked at my DD-214 once and it said that. That's the only reason I know. But like, seriously, whether it's 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, your time is up. You're going to take that uniform off at some point in time. And you need to start thinking before you put it on that it's going to end. What am I going to do afterwards, right? Financially, how am I going to prepare? Because I'm going to have to be back in the civilian world. I'm going to have to pay bills. I'm going to have to pay insurance. I'm going to have to pay all these things and get my education, right? Like, let's figure this out. Let's take advantage of it. I can tell you one of my biggest regrets in my time in is I got some education, but I did not make it a big enough priority. I kind of got enough for that EPR to say I was going for some school and make it look good, but not enough to like really progress through my education track or, to really make any serious progress. And it was only towards the last couple of years that I did it. But you need to think strategic from the day one of, I'll speak in Air Force terms because we're both Air Force guys, but you got to get through your CDCs. You got to get your, CDCs, Tech School 5 level, all that stuff. Once you get through that, you got a little bit of a gap before you start going for 7 level. That's your opportunity for education right there. Start going to college, knock out the core classes, even if you don't know what you want to do long term. Look at the career field you chose. Do you want to do that long term, right? You need to be constantly reevaluating that stuff. Think about it up front, reevaluate, and build up. And that's financially, that's education, that's career-wise, because even if you do 20 years and you came in at 18, you got another 25, 30 years of work. That's a whole nother career. That's a whole nother lifetime ahead of you.
Yeah, it's definitely. And even if they're not making those decisions yet, to get them start thinking on the process, because some people need to have that dream, that destiny, that vision before they go over and activate. But getting them to start thinking, that mentor is like, where do you want to be? So 5 years from now, if your career is over and I don't let you re-enlist, where do you think you're going to be a year or two after that? Asking those in-depth questions is like, hey, savings. Most of us go over in America, go over and struggle with that. Would you be able to handle a $400 emergency bill right now? Those jaw-dropping, mic-dropping questions to get people there, because once they have that motivation, they have that dream, that destiny, that vision, which the word is Chazown, CHAZOWN. Great book. I love to recommend. Helps you figure out that stuff in a practical way. Once you have that, then you're motivated. And that's the thing. Until you have it, I realized, even with like thinking of marriage and my wife, like we're both walking together to make each other's destiny come to reality. But until that person is ready to execute, you can see everything just like a supervisor does. And you're like, I see this great potential in you and blah, blah, blah. But if you don't see that great potential in you, you won't go and execute. So the mentorship should be like getting them towards that and really getting them towards the direction. Because if you say like, hey, I want to be on television, I can help you out in that regard. But if you want to go over and be an electronics technician, I still know how to help you out. But the thing is that if they don't know where they want to be, they could just be taking those courses and it could be detrimental to them. So you want them as best as you can to equip them, because everything changes. And that's the scary part, is every 3 to 5 years, the people change their job tracks, people change what direction they're going to go. And who thought in 2021 we would go to a digital streaming platform? If you would have told me in 19, I would have been on television, first off on one network, and secondarily now managing an entire network, which goals of 120,000 shows broadcasting over 213 countries. You said, Daniel, you need to go get a degree in broadcast technology. I'd be like, what are you talking about, man? I'm like, it's 19. I'm going over and doing podcasting. I would have never thought about it. So it's opening the door, being that mentorship to go over and helping our airmen or helping our spouses or helping our kids, whoever we're mentoring, to go over and to open those dreams and destiny, because it's all about their dreams and destiny, because that's when they're fruitful to the community and the society as a whole.
I couldn't agree more. And I'll kind of wrap it up on this. Like, there's a difference between mentorship and coaching. Coaching will cost you money, and there's a place for coaching, especially in business, personal life, whatever, high performance. Mentorship shouldn't cost you anything. There's people in your own network that you can reach out to that if you just stop and look at the people that are in your shop or work or neighbors, whatever, who are in a position in life, career, whatever that you want to be in, and they're a good person, that's approach them and say, hey, I'd like to learn more about who you are and what you do and your thoughts, right? A good mentor is going to be positive, and they're going to see the value in you, and they're going to see the value in guiding you. They're going to be appreciated for that. And then you got free services online that, like, I think they're nonprofits, but like Veterati and some other ones like that. You can sign up to be a mentor or a mentee. There's a couple different platforms for it. Veterati's the only one I can think of right now. I've had a couple people reach out to me strictly on real estate, that thought about a career, and all it takes for me is an hour or so conversation to talk to them and be like, well, here's the realistic view. Here's what it's going to roughly cost for you to start. Here's how it's going to be difficult. Here's the pros and the cons, right? Now you're educated on that career path, right? But it could be anything. So that shouldn't cost you anything. I guess I'll say, for those people who are on the fence and they would want one, take a little imperfect action, get off your butt and reach out to that person and say, hey, I would like to have a conversation, take them out to coffee, whatever. Just make that step, right? And build those mentorships. Because without it, you're not going to have that person that's going to hold you accountable and be there for you and have, want to see you succeed. So any thoughts on that, Daniel?
No, I totally agree that we should all take the chance to go over and to mentor people and everything else. And then again, there's a difference between consultation and coaching and things of that nature. But the long story short is that with our digital world, you even have more access. So not even getting off your duff, get your fingers off the TikTok. Yeah, watch mine. But when you're done or watching the Legarity Media, little shameless plug, as you're watching War Hero Superhero afterwards, you can go connect your thumbs to those content creators or connect to those mentors that you want to stay connected with. We are becoming an interactive global community. So why not? I got to interview Michael Lecter, which is part of Think and Grow Rich, and Sharon Lecter, because I utilized my thumbs to connect to someone else that connected me to someone else. I mean, we've been getting some awesome people that are coming to the table in the future for Legarity because we used our thumbs. So if you really want to get those connections, get your thumbs working. And the cool part is that you can type a lot faster with your thumbs than your hands. So leverage it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you never know the power of connections. I'm sure you would agree with this. Just the power of podcasting and talking to people. I had a past guest. Their episode hasn't even released yet. Just emailed me this morning and was like, hey, that conversation we had after the podcast, some of those people that I was talking about, I've gathered their information. I've talked to them. They're interested in talking to you, and I'm going to be passing along their information. And that's people I didn't even know about, but that they were just like, you know what? Hey, I know 2 or 3 people would be great for your show, or people you need to talk to. Mm-hmm. Like, the power of networking is huge. So, take advantage of that. Get your mentors, get out there and network, meet people, because it'll blow your mind who you connect with.
You do. Yeah.
So
that's what we do at Legarity Media. So anytime that we're running a club room on Clubhouse, we bring in our hosts too and go over and help them network and connect them to interviews and things of that nature. So it's one of the beautiful things about networks and connections and how those go over and work. And what we do at Legarity Media is to go over and to lift you up in that regard. So I think it's very worthwhile to go use your thumbs and to not go over and wait. But the biggest thing is to finalize the mentorship conversation is that you want to find a mentor that's faithful, available, teachable, and a servant. Faithful that they're going to commit to what they go over and say and do, available for the time that they are, teachable, both regards. They're teaching you, but then they are teachable back and forth because it's got to be a synergistic relationship because the styles might not work. And then also a servant, that they're there for your best well-being and not just for their gain. And when you have that, that's good fats, FATS, and that's when you go over and thrive.
That's a good point. Availability is a big one because time is precious. We all have a million different things we're trying to juggle in our work lives, personal lives, whatever. I'm a terrible juggler, but I could physically with stuff. But, seriously, Daniel, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and giving us your time and your advice and your thoughts. And that's where I was going with that, to share your thoughts and opinions and share with the world what Legarity Media is at. Once again, if you are listening and not watching, it's legaritymedia.com. I have been on you guys' clubhouse once or twice, and you guys had some great conversations in there. I know the one time you messaged me and you're like, hey, you want to come up and talk? And I was literally sitting here at my desk just working on things. I'm like, I'm just kind of listening in the background, listening, man, just soaking it all in. So you guys have a club on Clubhouse. What's the club name? Where can people find you there and other social platforms?
It's Legrity.tv. So you can go find out what clubs that we're going over and doing. And if you're ready to go over and to come onto our network and you're ready to get past the shadow banning, the low subs, the ads, and you're not making money and whatnot, and you want to keep 100% of revenue within your show to you, then we're ready to go over and to onboard you. So we do have some criteria, of course, TV 14 below, legacy integrity, global community mindset, positive content, and would love to go over and connect with you and to get your message out there so you can get it to your global community. So, and that's where we're on Clubhouse, we're on Facebook, we're on a bunch of places, and you can download the app and just go try it for free right now while we're in this blue ocean stage. But the thing is that the stage will close quickly, and we are exclusive and inclusive. So if you're listening to this in December and January, and you're like, don't go over and wait. We'll help you walk through the process, and you're not going to be alone. That's the beautiful thing, is we have a community, not just saying names, but you're going to have a community of content creators and producers that lift you up, masterminds, and we're going to help you walk through the entire process. So if you're already podcasting and you're ready to the next level and you want to get on digital TV and want to get past the noise, we're ready to serve you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Daniel. Go ahead and play my little ending video here about where people can find more resources on my website and the National Suicide Hotline. But I appreciate you being here, being on the show. All of the listeners, Daniel's information will be on the YouTube in the description. And you can go on my website, battlebuddypodcast.net. After his launches, you'll see his face there, and you'll see links to connect with him and the different things that's going on. So go to our website. You can find him there. You can listen to the episode, all that stuff. So once again, Daniel, appreciate it. You take it easy.
Have a good day.